Welcome to This Explainer. Today, we're literally looking under the hood of social anxiety. We're not just going to sit here and talk about what it feels like. We are going to break down exactly why it happens, how it gets wired into your brain, and most importantly, the step-by-step blueprint to rewire it. If you've ever felt totally overwhelmed in a crowd or, hyperanalyzed a simple conversation for hours after it ended, you are absolutely in the right place.
Right out of the gate, I want to ask you a question that might just challenge everything you think you know about this topic. Are you actually afraid of people? When we think of social anxiety, we naturally just assume the fear is triggered by the presence of others. But is it the people themselves that represent the danger?
Okay, let's dive into this, because this is a massive paradigm shift. People with social anxiety don't usually fear people themselves. They fear being judged by them. It's a subtle but incredibly powerful distinction. Social anxiety doesn't just spontaneously appear out of nowhere, right? It's actually a highly structured fear built on three distinct layers. If you can understand these three layers, you basically unlock the ability to understand yourself, and from there, real change becomes remarkably manageable.
So this brings us to layer 1, innate sensitivity.
Some kids are simply born with a much more sensitive internal alarm system. The scientific term for this is behavioral inhibition. If you had this as a child, you likely didn't just dive headfirst into social activities. Instead, you observed from the sidelines. You watched other kids play, kind of trying to figure out their behavior before taking a single step forward. You were cautious. If you felt totally comfortable, sure, you'd join in, but if not, you held back. This is a foundational trait, something you are literally born with, not something you learned.
And this brilliantly illustrates the difference in how that sensitive alarm system works. Think about child number 1. They see kids they don't know, they feel a bit of normal anxiety, but they join in anyway. Their internal alarm triggers, but it turns off quickly. Now look at child number 2, the child predisposed to social anxiety. When you're this child, you don't just feel anxious, you feel completely unsafe. There is no way you're joining in. Your alarm triggers rapidly and it turns off extremely slowly. Life didn't harm you to make you this way. You just started out cautious.
But that innate biology is really just the seed. So how does it actually grow? Well, a child's mind is a sponge, constantly absorbing lessons through what we call behavioral modeling. If you watched a family member get highly anxious over a simple phone call or panic in a crowd, you absorb this hardwired lesson that human connection is inherently risky. Add overprotection to the mix, and the problem multiplies. When a parent constantly shields a cautious child, say, never leaving their side on the first day of school, it feels safe in the moment, but it actually steals a vital opportunity to practice handling uncertainty. The core lesson the brain retains is simple and honestly dangerous. Without protection, there is danger.
Next, we move to layer 2, learn fear.
Let's follow this progression for a second. In childhood, awkward interactions are just a bit uncomfortable. But adolescence? Oh man, that acts as a massive magnifying glass. Suddenly, doesn't life feel like a theater stage where you are standing right in the center? Your brain convinces you that everyone is staring at you, judging you. An awkward moment doesn't just feel uncomfortable, it registers as a permanent social catastrophe. And tragically, this metaphorical stage often grows up with you. Even in adulthood, your brain keeps running that exact same teenage script, convinced that everyone in the room is mocking or judging you.
And because of those past painful encounters, whether it was rejection, bullying, or just acute embarrassment, your brain learns to project devastating negative meanings onto completely ambiguous social cues. If you say hello to someone, actually even if you just wave at them and they give a flat response, your brain ignores the fact that they might just be tired. Instead, it screams, "They hate me." The pain comes from the story you make up. In every interaction, your brain stops asking the objective question, "What actually happened?" and obsessively asks, "What does this say about me?"
So to protect yourself from these perceived threats, you end up building this invisible fortress of unwritten, rigid rules. I must appear smart. They must not see that I'm nervous. I must be liked by everyone. You essentially become a perfectionist. But here's the secret, and it's a big one. You aren't actually afraid of standing in front of people or going to a party. You are terrified that other people will prove your self-imposed rules wrong. You're simply protecting the rigid, impossible image you forced upon yourself.
Now we reach layer 3, the anxiety loop.
This entire engine is fueled by internal focus. During a conversation, instead of actually listening to the person in front of you, you're hyper-focused inward. Let's rapidly walk through this self-fulfilling loop. Step 1, you worry about looking nervous. Step 2, because you're worrying, your anxiety spikes. Step 3, that anxiety makes you act and look visibly tense. Maybe your hands tremble or you blush. Step 4, you notice you look tense. And step 5, your panic escalates even further.
It's wild, but your fear of the physical symptoms actually generates those exact symptoms in real time.
Now, what's really interesting here is how we actually try to cope with that intense loop. We rely on safety behaviors. We speak quietly. We rehearse sentences in our heads over and over before saying them. We avoid eye contact. We think these things are helping us survive. But in reality, they trick your brain into believing that these artificial crutches are the only reason you survive the interaction. Because you never engage naturally, your brain never learns that you're fundamentally safe without them.
And of course, the ultimate safety behavior is complete avoidance. When you avoid a social event, you get this immediate rush of relief, but that relief is disastrous. It provides false proof to your brain, basically confirming, wow, that event really was dangerous, thank goodness we avoided it. And even when you do go, you engage in post-event rumination, spending hours mentally replaying a 1-hour conversation just to fixate on a single minor mistake you might have made. It is an endless cycle of perceived danger.
Which brings us to the solutions, the blueprint, how to break the cycle.
We're going to start with the gradual exposure ladder. This is a highly structured way to test your predicted anxiety against actual reality. You basically rank your fears from 0 to 100. Ordering food might be a 10, asking a question in a meeting might be a 40, giving a formal presentation is 90. You start at the very bottom and you practice consistently. The absolutely crucial point is this. When you actually perform the task, you will almost always find your real anxiety is significantly lower than the catastrophic prediction your brain made. You literally prove to your brain that the fear was worse than the event itself.
But here's the catch. Exposure only works if you face the moment authentically. That means you must drop the safety behaviors. You have to do the exact opposite of what your anxiety demands. Instead of looking away, practice direct eye contact. Instead of whispering, speak at a normal volume. Hold your posture steady. You literally have to take the crutches away so your brain can finally realize it can stand on its own 2 feet.
Which brings us to our next technique, and this is absolutely crucial: shifting your focus. To break that spiraling internal loop we talked about earlier, you have to actively force your attention outward. When you catch yourself monitoring your heart rate, look at the other person's facial expressions instead. When you start wondering if you sound stupid, force yourself to actively listen to the words they're saying. Shift your attention away from how you appear and deliberately project it onto the environment around you.
Ultimately, breaking free from social anxiety requires letting go of those rigid, unwritten rules of perfection. So I want to leave you with this provocative thought to consider today. What is actually wrong with simply being an ordinary human who occasionally makes mistakes, feels nervous, and stumbles over their words? Inner peace doesn't come from wearing a flawless social mask. It comes from embracing the messy, beautiful reality of authentic human connection. Drop the rules, and you just might find the freedom you've been looking for.